Hey there, Wargamers, Justin and Painter here, and you guys are tuning in for another episode of the Two Nerds Talking podcast, and I've got John back out here with me today. And for today's prompt or topic, we're going to be talking about kind of like what is wargaming or gaming for us in general, with a focus kind of probably on escapism. So, probably open it up for you. Like, what is gaming to you? What if there's like one thing you had to define it as? What comes to mind?
To me, gaming takes things back to just being simple. Like childhood, like as kids like games.
Yep.
Kids like to play stuff and have fun. To me, opening your mind to gaming is escapism, to kind of forget about the worries of life, stress, bills, family, whether it's, with family or, wife, kids, bills, work. It's a good escape from that, because most people will work like a full-time job or whatever they do during the day, whether it's a full-time job or whatever their responsibilities are. And then they will check their boxes, and then when they can, they'll slip away and play either Call of Duty, sports games, tabletop games, card games. I think all those things kind of branch into the same thing of just a way to kind of get away from responsibility and just kind of release a little bit, let your walls down, and kind of be a kid again, because ignorance is bliss, to where kids don't really get how the world is.
You don't have bills as a child.
If you can revert back to that child state and just do something that you find enjoyment in, I think that is a good way to kind of keep yourself stable.
Yeah. I would agree. So for me, I think that wargaming was not the first thing I got into. I did video gaming first, but I think a lot of it, people probably have their own take on it, or what things mean, or what the escapism feels like for them, and the wins and the whys. And everybody is a little bit different. So like, you could be like a millionaire who escapes from the everyday grind of what you're doing in the video games or miniatures, or you could be someone who's on the complete opposite end of that still loses themselves in a book or video games, minis, whatever. So I think for me, so my childhood was a bit tumultuous as I was growing up. A lot of like kind of broken home type shit, people coming and going and whatnot. But one of the standards, the constants, was video games. So I have some early video game experiences that I had, but the probably most pivotal one was my uncle. When he got me, or not got me, he was in the Marines, and when I first met him, I don't know what, like, he was getting out what he was doing. He was really young at the time, but whatever. He gave me his old Super Nintendo and Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 6 or 3 at the time, and that was my two major dives into JRPGs, which gave me a form of escapism. So like, if you play Sonic the Hedgehog, at least for me, I was never playing Sonic the Hedgehog thinking I'm gonna roll as a ball and go around this crap. Or if I'm playing Tetris, I don't imagine that I'm the man arranging the blocks. It's a good reference if you guys get the YouTube video. If you do, just put the earworm in you. If I had an editor, they would play it right now. You should YouTube it if you aren't familiar with it. So you play those RPGs, and you start to associate with the characters. This interactive book, you're losing yourself in that. I never really was very good at reading. I can read, but like, it was hard ADD type stuff to focus. But I grew up with like, Reading Rainbow, Wishbone, shit like that. And one of the things they would do is like getting lost in a book, right?
Yeah, Wishbone. That
takes you back. Takes you back, right?
Man,
I loved that when I was a kid. But you really do, like, people who read generally lose themselves in a book. So when you look at someone who it's not undiagnosed, but feel like I have some form of ADD, honestly, it's just what I feel like, because it's hard. But if you give yourself a story and something to work your hands and interact with, all of a sudden I'm there. So playing Final Fantasy 6 and Chrono Trigger, that was two of my early experiences, losing myself in a different world. And as I grew up, I followed the Final Fantasy series, so I went from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation, so 7, 8, 9, Tactics 10 on the PS2, and then after that, it kind of just went to shit. But those were the constant, and you always feel like you had control over something in the universe, whereas in real life, you may not feel like you've got a lot of control over stuff. So for me, that was a great place to like kind of lose myself in that. And then that translated kind of over to tabletops. John and I were talking about this today off camera, about some of the things we like about tabletop wargaming, and how some of my favorite video game stuff are turn-based RPGs or turn-based strategies. these tabletop games are not first-person shooters. They are not active games in the sense that, like, as I'm moving a mini, you're moving faster and shooting better than me. Like, this is chess with more rules, so to speak.
Literal turn-based strategy.
Yeah. So,
Literal.
like, someone who's some of their favorite games as a kid and then a young adult, Final Fantasy Tactics and XCOM, those are two of my favorite strategy games. I grew up playing, these were more real-time strategies, but I grew up playing Command & Conquer, Mech Commander, stuff like that, too. This lets me escape into that world and be social at the same time. So a lot of people think they lose themselves in their hobbies, their books, their video games, whatever. This is a way for me to not just fall into being the stereotypical like stay-at-home grog who plays video games and lives in the basement. I'm not that basement troll. Minis for me was that bridge between enjoying escapism and being able to connect with other people and socialize so you can kind of escape together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add?
No, you just Super Nintendo. I mean, I started way back on like the Commodore 64 before they had RPGs and stuff. So Super Nintendo was like the first kind of venture into gaming JRPGs, and JRPGs really opened the door for Western RPGs.
Yeah.
But I started along the same line where Super Nintendo was the first introduction. And I played Sonic just like everybody else did.
Yeah.
You did Chrono Trigger. My big thing was Super Mario RPG.
Yeah, I've never played it, but I've heard it's great.
It's so good they redid it for the Switch. But that was amazing because it was characters I was familiar with, which was Mario, Peach, Bowser, all those other people. And they introduced new characters, and then you were in control. It was characters you were familiar with that normally before that, it was just Super Mario World All-Stars, or it was like a Mario Kart. So to kind of learn more about those characters and then be involved in these attacks and story mode and storylines and see how they know each other, how they interact, it was really fun. So that was great. Final Fantasy was awesome. 7, 8.
Yeah, I know 8's your jam. What's your favorite?
8 was mine. 7's yours.
Yep.
7's a close. To me, 7 is a close second.
Most people I have met that did not like 9, they liked 7 or 8.
Yep.
And one, it was either one or the other that was the favorite. And if they liked 9, they really just didn't care for 7 or 8 as much at all.
In my humble opinion, I feel like 7 was a little overrated, not because it's not good, but because it was the first one that really exploded.
Yeah.
So it caught all the attention and kind of overshadowed 8. I know 9 has a great story. I just couldn't get past the chibi kitty characters. And then 10 came out. That was a rock star.
It's one of my favorites. It's fantastic.
Also, there's some other PlayStation RPGs that were really good, like Legend of Dragoon.
Yep, we've got that too.
Was
Legend
amazing.
of Legaia. Yeah, or
Legaia.
Legaia, yeah.
Visions of Mana. There's tons
Parasite
of great
Eve.
games. Tons of great games. Yeah. A lot of great games, but it was a really rich time to jump into that genre. Yep. And it was fun because you could sink hours and hours and hours in there. There's no DLCs. There's no, pay to win. There's no gold skins. There's no online toxic lobbies. It was just pure enjoyment at one cost, one price point, and then you're in there. Yeah. Something else I kind of segued off to was when I was 9, there's all that stuff, but then, Game Boy Color.
Oh, yeah,
Pokemon was gigantic. And I told the story on our first episode of TNT where I freaked out because my dad took me to a pawn shop on the way to the mall, and we found Pokemon Blue for $10, and I hid it under the seat because I was scared someone was going to break in the car and steal it. Yep. That was a big deal because back then there was no cell phones, there's no internet, there's no stuff like that. So those little pockets of adventure really we dove into those things wholeheartedly.
That got me, so Pokemon got me through my childhood. I don't remember if Blue or Red was my first one, but my step-grandmother at the time worked at a Goodwill, and somebody had brought in the brick Game Boy, the old one with the green looking screen.
The pocket.
Yeah, it was a huge.
It was the size of a satchel.
Yeah, it was massive. Took the 4 AA's, and I got either red or blue from her. I'm pretty sure she got that.
It was all gray, but
yeah, it's a huge part of my childhood. But that's probably a pretty good segue in that. Despite a lot of the home life I had, again, so it was from a broken home. I moved around a lot. So when you move around a bunch, let me back up. Not only was it a broken home, the father figures I had were also military, so it was a lot of moving. And anyone who's been a military brat in some capacity is used to it. They're also probably used to divorce, because the divorce rate's high as shit. So that was my place to escape. I played a lot of Pokemon. I never used the volume. I barely had the screen bright enough to see, and I would put batteries in the freezer to make them last longer. That's how bad it was.
Funny. You'd rotate the good battery and a bad battery
Yep.
together.
Yeah, I did
and
that.
rotate the good ones around.
And
Yep.
steal one battery out of the remote and put the bad one in it, just so I keep my Game Boy going. So that was a big part of it. And I had some good times with friends. Yours going to the park, those stories are really good. I never had that. I tried to make friends, but again, you move. So once you get friends that are established
That's
in like
tough.
So I had friends that were like into it, and then I move and I lose those friends. So it was important to me to like maintain my game stuff I was doing, but like I ended up getting a second Game Boy and then trading myself.
The link cable.
The link cable, yeah.
Yep.
Which a lot of people probably did, but like for me, I didn't have that social aspect of Pokemon. I didn't never get to explore to its fullest because I didn't have those friends or that constant. Whereas when I got into wargaming, when I could finally afford to, because I'd seen that stuff growing up a little bit, never could afford it. I was basically finally working as I think an adult, because I turned 18 when I was in high school. When I finally got my first job, had enough money to try some games, and that's where I dove into this kind of thing, and it bridged the gap between escaping into a digital world to escaping into escaping while being in the physical world, if that makes sense. And that like I can sit down and play MechWarrior Dark Age, and I'm in my head, I'm like, what are these mechs doing? What's the sounds they're making? And collecting and like really losing myself there, but also losing myself with someone else because there's a social component to this. I picked this up when I was watching Fritz 40K years ago. It may have been when his channel was called Way of Sam Han. Talking about the social contract of wargaming, which is why we harp a lot on the channel about being a good opponent, a good player, a good person in the community. Because I know the person playing with you, you never know what they're going through. So like, if you sat down and played games with me and John have done this a billion times, whether he realizes it or not. But when we sit down and play these games, it's my forces versus yours, but you've painted them, or in this case, someone painted these minis for me. But like, it's our little units, our little creations fighting against each other in their own little universe in that microcosm. We have created the scene, and I'm thinking about like what this looks like, how it goes, like the story of it, and connecting. So if someone's ever played with me, like at Southern Assault, you may not realize that is how my brain goes. And especially at Southern Assault, I ham it up in that stupid outfit because like I'm really trying to like bring something to the table for someone else. So before I get into some of how I look at wargaming, we've talked about this too, because I interviewed you basically the first podcast, talked about like your life growing up, D&D, military service stuff. I met you when you were just getting out of the Marine Corps when you moved here. Was your dive into wargaming, was that a way to exercise demons to escape anything, or is that off base in some way?
It was a way for me to kind of forget them, put them on the back burner, because gaming for me is when I flip that switch in my mind to where I'm gaming, I can turn that little kid again, because everybody has a little child inside them.
Yeah.
And whether it's you're walking past a pack of Pokemon cards, that kid's like, oh, buy it, just open
Every
it.
time I see them every time I see Pokemon cards in the store, I want to buy them.
Yeah,
because like you get excited when you open them.
Because you're like, there's that little dopamine rush of like, oh, I could really pull a really good card, because back in the day when the Pokemon cards first came out, I dove into it big time because,
same.
I mean, getting that base set booster pack that now goes for like a few $100, like $600-$700, like the chance of pulling like a Blastoise or a Charizard or a Venusaur or a Mewtwo, like that was like, oh my God. So me and my buddies, I don't know if I said this before, we used to get a booster pack and we go card by card, like, oh, mine would beat yours. Let's look at the next one.
Yeah.
And we see which pack was better.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I might have said this to you or on the last episode, but like me and a buddy, Charlie Clark, we were sitting in the back of his mom's car and we're going through the pack, and the very last card was like the rare card. And I pulled mine out, and it was like Kabutops, and it was like a really cool card. He pulled his next card, it was a super potion. And he's like, this is bullshit. And his mom's like, what'd you say? He's like, you heard me. And he started crying. He's like, I don't want it. I'm like, I'll take it. He goes, you can have it. She goes, you can't have it. I'm like, he doesn't want it. So it was funny, but I'll remember that because we were so into like every aspect possible, because as kids, like there's an innocence to where you can really enjoy the little things in life. To where that's why kids find the most like simple things enjoyable. Like I know there's a line in a movie with Paul Rudd where he's a dad, and he's, God, kids fucking love bubbles.
Yeah.
I wish I loved bubbles like kids love bubbles. Because it's just little things. Like, sometimes if you find something that brings you that little rush of joy, whether it's like a restaurant or like a movie or like a little thing, or going through like a Goodwill and see this old toy you might have had at one point, or a garage sale, like those little things kind of remind you of how simple life was, and how sometimes it's not that bad. But again, it's just little things that you find enjoyment in. So escapism, it's a segue to where like it is an opportunity for escapism, and also this might be more of a guy thing than a girl thing, but to me it's cool. Like, for example, Battletech or Star Wars, like it's these cool like adventures and these heroes and these interactions. And like you said, when I'm playing and let's say these guys are facing off, and in my mind those lasers are shooting, the missiles are shooting, it's like those cool book covers, and those things are going on. Like early we had a game to where we played a game where there was a battlefield condition artillery strike, and one came down, hit your guy, and did a crit and blew him up. Like a mine, like an artillery round came down, just blew the whole mech up in the middle of the whole movement. Like that's a cool thing. So it's just, sometimes it is the little things in life that really kind of make things worth it, whether it's gaming or something else. So if you have something that makes you feel that way, you got to hold on to it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've probably struggled with as I have gotten older, responsibilities, become more strict, especially in your case, because John's a homeowner, has a child, and he's married. I don't have a child, I'm not married, not a homeowner, because I'm poor.
I'm poor too.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you got a house and a kid and a wife, you're probably also struggling to have extra hobby funds. But I think one of the things I struggle with is when you and I met and we were playing games, the level of escapism I got out of it was grandiose. I was so excited, and we were forging all these narratives, these stories. The older I've got, the harder it's become, because when I go to sit down, so like when I would paint, not even just gaming, like painting, and I'm putting myself in that zone and I'm thinking about the story, real life starts to, like, for me, stress me right the shit out. It's really hard.
It weighs on you.
Yeah, so like while I'm painting, all I can think about it, instead of like the escape of it, which is what it's supposed to be, for me, some of it is like, am I doing this fast enough for my YouTube? Should I be doing commissions for money? Is there this other thing in life that's stressing me out? So all of a sudden, the thing that's supposed to help me escape is, it's not doing enough. I don't know if that's something you struggle with, but it can be really hard sometimes to get that spark going once the weight of life is on you. Because like when you and I met in my our early 20s, like it was nothing, but also I feel like that was probably the golden age of gaming for us, the last little bit of like childhood innocence, so to speak, because we had the free time to invest what we wanted. And now it's like, if you want to jump into that escapism, now we have to really, it's regimented. Like there was a time where I'd be like, yo dude, you want to come over and talk strategy about this thing, or talk about what we're going to plan for Star Wars this weekend, whatever. You'd be like, yeah man, I'm good at McDonald's, I'm coming over, or whatever.
Like, hey, I'm watching X-Files, you want to paint some minis?
Yeah.
So I'll come over, I'll swing by McDonald's, get like a 50-piece nugget for like, $15. It was like, it was my turn to buy, so I'd get it. And we just chat on nuggets while we're like painting little Warhammer 40K minis and watching reruns of X-Files. Like it was stupid, but it was just a cool hangout. And now that we're more adulty, or we're more,
I'm pushing 40, man.
Yeah, we're pushing 40.
Shit.
And yeah, it sucks. We're pushing 40, and we have to like plan time out now.
Yeah, literally plan time.
You have a full-time job with YouTube and commissions and everything else you have going on with with your relationships and everything, and then I have a family and I have a full-time job.
Yeah, each one of those is a layer.
So to get time like this, we have to plan ahead of time. Like this, I mean,
especially you living almost an hour and a half away too.
Yeah, whenever this comes out, like this is being filmed mid to late November. And we had to plan this out back during Southern Assault. So that was, 3-4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And next time we game, it's not going to be until probably January, because we have Thanksgiving coming up, and then Christmas, New Year's, plus jobs, life, family, girlfriends, wife, girlfriend, wife, not girlfriend and wife.
Yeah.
Clarify on that one.
Girlfriends and wife, like, no, there's one.
But we have to plan it out, because, we're not kids anymore, and we recognize that. So when we get a chance to come out and do this, we kind of make a whole day of it. So I'll come out like 9, 10 in the morning, and then we'll be here until anywhere from between 5 to 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's because this is our little getaway from life, because right now it's just me and him, and here at the location, and we can kind of like talk back on fun times,
Yep.
joke about stuff, and just forget about everything outside. Because once we leave here, it's back to the grind, and back to the real world. Not that we don't enjoy the things that we do outside of here, but this is like a little escape.
Yeah.
This is like us going home and flipping on the Super Nintendo and jumping into our favorite game and forgetting about things because we have the whole weekend off and
Yep.
school's on Monday.
Yeah.
It's
Back when weekends didn't feel like they were 10 minutes.
yeah. So we have to plan this stuff out. So
I
we
get
probably
off
won't
on-
play until January 2nd, 3rd week of January maybe, and then we'll crank out 2, 3, 4 more videos, get some more games in,
Yep.
catch up on life, and then rinse and repeat. So we'll have this session probably realistically. Every year we'll get maybe 10 to 15 of these sessions.
Yep.
And it might seem like a lot, but that's over the course of a year.
Yeah.
And we only have so many years, left.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to make the most of what you can, and it's just holding out for that planned time that we just kind of can plan for and look forward to, and just jump out and do it. But again, life can get in the way too.
Yep. So one of the things, at least for me, and this maybe resonate more with me than it does with you, but 40K was a pretty good example of this. But people used to ask me like what I like about it, the faction lore. We both ended up falling or gravitating towards Dark Angels. You first, and then me later, because I started reading the lore. But when you're building and painting an army, one of the things that people would ask me about, like, why do you like these models beyond just the lore? So especially with like Space Marines, I would tell people, and this is a little bit sad, but it's like, where in life am I ever going to be a superhuman badass, right? You could be a normal human badass, maybe, but like I start to gravitate towards things that like I could lose myself in something that this guy has traits that I don't have. So like at a top level when it comes to wargaming, like I'm never going to be some like warrior tactician who's leading soldiers in battle, but here I get to do that. When I paint a mech, I'm never going to be, or if I'm playing like classic, I'm never going to actually pilot some kind of war machine, but right here, right now, I'm the Mad Cat pilot. If I'm painting a Space Marine, it's like, well, this dude has all these traits, these things that are cool. He's superhuman and stoic, and he's a protector, whatever. Some of those traits might be things you like in life, but like for me, and maybe it's kind of like what people do in D&D, where they like certain traits from characters, or some of their personality comes through because they get to like project on it. But like you get to be or lose yourself in something else that you can't do in real life. Like we're never going to do this in real life, nor would we want to. It seems cool, but no one wants to get in a 100-ton metal box and get shot at, right?
No, it's characteristics and traits you can aspire to.
Yeah.
And this can be your avatar of those traits and those characteristics, because no, we're not gonna go on an adventure and handle like a 8-foot sword and summon stuff. No.
That's never gonna happen. No. Never gonna happen. But that's the stuff that I like, and I think that some people gravitate towards it, especially at least with me with minis. There's plenty of mini games out there, but if I can't look at a mini and be like, man,
That's cool.
yeah, that's cool. What if I was that guy? And if I look at it and I can't think that, then I'm like, I don't know. So like, bring it back to like video games. When I look at like Mass Effect, and I'm like, yo, who? I mean, I will say this, and some naysayer be in the comments, but who wouldn't want to be Commander Shepard? The dude is a badass. Right?
Or at least be on the ship or be part of his crew.
So like I played the last time I finished Mass Effect when the re-release came out, the HD remake or whatever they call it.
The Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
No, is I don't know.
Not Master Chief, that's Halo.
Yeah.
But yeah, the collection thing. And I bought it, and I'd played it before, but one of the things they did is they removed the online play requirement to get the good endings, because it was a Mass Effect 3?
Yeah, you had to do online,
So stupid.
Legendary, wasn't it?
Yeah, might be Legendary, yeah. So I got that, and like I was attached to those characters again, like interactive story, whatever, but like you almost cried at the end of that. I knew it was coming, but you get it, and it's like you're attached to all those characters, and this is the same reason why I find watching certain shows to be like a form of escapism, because I may not be one of the characters, but I feel like I'm there, right? Which some of this might sound sad as shit, but like when I'm going through those choices with Commander Shepard, if it's not this character doing what I want, I'm a member of the crew who's witnessing this, and I'm there. So like I have an attachment to all these characters, and if they live or they die or they succeed, whatever, like I feel that shit.
What about the end of Crisis Core?
Yeah, so I cried in that too.
Ooh, that was tough,
yeah.
because there's not just that getting more and more and more. There's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, some games are really, they know how to get you.
Yeah. So Spoiler alert, if you've not played Crisis Core, you can turn off the video now. But they put you in a last stand situation where the main character is fighting off hordes of soldiers, and there's like suspenseful, sad music playing, and you're going, and you know your character's going to fall.
And you're protecting the main character of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, Cloud.
You're the person that he embodies, and he makes himself to be after. Like, he copies you, and you're that guy.
Yeah, and you know what's coming, and if you've played 7, you know the story, and you keep trying, you try anyway, and you know, like, eventually you're going to fall. But
all the cutscenes, the reels, like, it just keeps hitting you.
Yep. Downside to that is they've gone and made 7 and shit all over that. So 7
as they do, they got to ruin everything. It's good.
Yeah, they
make it hack and slash.
I talk about my favorite games ever and Escapism, and then I get 7, and I could almost accept the fact that they made that an action RPG kind of thing, even though I hate that. But they took the story and that last stand or situation with Zack, like, they basically shit on it. You go into 7 remake and he's not dead. Aerith isn't dead. There's going to be a chance she doesn't die. And I'm like, these are pivotal. Sorry for spoilers on that. If you didn't know it, now you know. But that's kind of ingrained in gamer culture. Now you know that was the first big thing that happened.
Ruin the shitty game. It's okay.
Yeah.
Don't play the original. Go back play the
sorry,
HD.
I was talking about spoiling the original. But yeah, so them doing that is like, well, now all these experiences I had, they still had them, but now they don't feel good. Like that whole scene with Zack doesn't feel as good if the official story has changed. It's kind of like same thing with Star Wars when they went and they took everything and put it into Legends. I get why they did it, but then they changed everything. And it's like, well, now I could still enjoy them, but I don't enjoy them if I know this isn't the real canon, right? So like I don't know, it goes back and retroactively makes me regret some of my Escapism because it's not as good anymore.
No, it's still good. It's just because other people changed what they thought it was doesn't change what it was to you.
I just wish that because now when I go back to play, I'm just like, but they're ruining it. I know you get it with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because it sucks, because they're ruining Star Wars. So we did Star Wars minis too, and like the coolest thing about that one, I think, crafting your force, and you guys sit down to play, and then I'm just like, this battle with Yoda and R2-D2 and all my stupid little clones, like, this didn't happen in the lore, but it's happening right here. We're forging like a little side battle.
But this skirmish could have taken place and fit inside. So like, if they brought back Star Wars minis, I'm in 100%. I'd go right back to it.
Yep.
Even with like the stupid new characters.
Yeah. So that was cool. The same way I think about with this and with Warhammer 40K when we did that. These battles might not be from the book canon, but like we're creating our own little universe, own little world. So it's really cool to me.
Yeah.
And that's also why I feel like when we have played games, I want thematic games. So like if John and I both played Clan Wolf, then I would be trying to encourage him to paint something else and me to paint something else so that we aren't just playing the same models against each other, the same faction, because that's boring. And even if in the lore there was some kind of civil war and blah, 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 like that, it can't be every time we play. That's the justification for the matchup. So it's nice to have variety on the table. So
yeah, so for example, 40K, I was Necrons, then I went Dark Angels, he was Ultramarines, then I got out of 40K, and it's like he switched over and picked up Dark Angels and kept
I also got
going.
Tau. I did Tau. You did Tau 1.2.
I started to, but then I went Eldar actually.
Okay.
I was Eldar. Yep. And then I got out because they want to charge arm and leg for everything. They're going to make new rules, change the meta, change the balance. I can't afford all that, and that was before I had a family. I mean, I could barely afford Battletech, but at least you can get your initial investment, and it's not going to change.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed this more because you can't just destroy somebody on turn one.
Oh, yeah, and they're not going to get leaf blowed. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so 40K, I love the aesthetic. I love the fun I had when I first got into it. But that game can go kick rocks. I'm not going back to it. I like the lore, the cool machismo thing factor to it. But no, I've put that chapter to bed. I enjoy it from a distance.
I can't even do that. I like the minis. There's a few minis I have, but like wanting to read books or even play games like Space Marine 2, I've heard it's great. I'm concerned that if I play it, then I will want to replicate that on the tabletop.
I know I will.
I can't do it. Like the getting into 40K is expensive. That's not even, that doesn't, expensive is not the best word. Battletech is very affordable. 40K is like, Battletech's like buying a used car. 40K is like buying a Rolls Royce by comparison. Like for $100 in Battletech, you got a lot of stuff. $100 in 40K is a core rulebook and a codex, if that now.
And Battletech does not expire their stuff. For example, this piece is from 1993.
Yeah.
This piece is from 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
They're both still good. They don't have any differences. They both represent the same models. Nothing's changed. Same firepower, different rules. they don't say screw your old pieces.
For
40K,
now, because 40K used to not do that, and then they did. So like that's one thing that scares me if BattleTech continues
circa
to grow.
2024.
Yeah.
These are still both good.
Yeah.
40K. Don't even get me started.
When you were playing, because you had old Necrons in this
Third edition, phase out.
Yeah, with new Necron models coming out, you could still use the old ones. Same thing with old Orcs, old Terminators, old whatever, old Space Marines. It's not true anymore. They've phased things out, and
that
it's
hobby's so
unfortunate.
expensive I can't justify it. Like a 5-man squad is like $50-$60.
Yeah, it's
versus $50-$60 you can field the whole army, and that's all you need. It's just the cost of entry for 40K is so daunting.
Yeah.
And then let's say you do that, then you got to hope you get your stuff ready to play before the
retire
next
it.
codex comes out, and then you bring it to a shop to play, and someone is going to bring out the coolest things and just completely just
dumpster dunk you.
yeah,
Yep.
that's a better word.
Yep,
Sure, I'm not going to
dumpster
say what I
dunk.
wanted to say, but they'll do something to where you're like, why did I just spend a couple $100 on this? Because I had no fun. It was over in 6 minutes.
Yep.
And they're like, you want to go again? No, I don't want to go again.
Yeah,
I want to go home.
Yeah, and I've had that experience too, which for me, this is a good segue into like escapism. So like when I'm painting a soldier, a space marine or whatever, I'm thinking about like what battles do they fight in, what's their name, where are they at? Same thing with mechs. If I have a stray brushstroke, well, that's battle damage. Is there a mold line battle damage or whatever? And I'm making these things up in my mind. And then I would sit down to play, and you would play with someone who's in their idea of fun is different. So they're interested in just dumpster dunking, and then I sit down and I'm like, well, here's my Space Marines, and this one squad of Space Marines took me 40 hours to paint, as an example, and I have 50 Space Marines plus HQs and tanks and whatever, so it's a lot of time. And then I'm playing with someone who rattle can dry brush, and if that's all you can do, I get it. But then that thing they rattle can and dry brushed is the most meta list possible. It's not units they think actually look cool. It's the best stuff. So I had a game where, and I've used this example a bunch. Brought my stuff out to play. I was playing Tau. Dude brought out his Sisters of Battle, his Skitarii, and this little Grey Knight guy, Inquisitor dude, whatever, and this little terrain piece. And I lost on turn 1, basically. And then he's like, well, your reserves haven't dropped in. And I rolled. My reserves failed to come in, too. But had they came in, they would have just died, because if I dropped them next to him to fire at him, he had a way to intercept and shoot them before I got to fire. And if I dropped him far enough he couldn't fire, he would just shoot me off the table before I could get into range. It was over. The game was over. And I'm not even kidding you. It took longer to unpack my minis than it did to play. And then, he told me he built a list to counter mine. And I'm like, but why? My list was not super competitive. I had a Highlander list, aside from my Crisis suits, that I had one Hammerhead. I had like one Skyray. I had, the core troops. I had Crisis suits. I had one Riptide. I had one Ghost Keel. I didn't spam anything except for my troop choices, because I played Farsight. So my battle suits were troop choices. And I wasn't going to win even if he didn't cheese. I had models I liked. So I spent all this time crafting these cool models and imagining an alternate paint scheme or whatever. And I sit down, someone else's interest is not the same. And it's okay for some people, but for me, like, it wasn't fun. Like, I tried to forge a story and a narrative, and then someone else just cared more about
Copy and pasted it list off
yeah,
there.
yeah. They cared more about the mechanics than they did about the story. So when I talk about like escapism and having the escapism with some social interaction with another person, I didn't get to escape. I was brought right into the meta real world of what they were doing, and did not have a fun experience. So then I went home, and it's like, well, I spent all this time. It's like playing D&D, where you spend, let's say you spend a dozen hours making your character and your backstory and making all this stuff, and then you go sit down to play, and then you sit down with a group, and the guy, you ask him, well, what's your character's name? Well, I'm Squiggly Wiggly, or something like that, or I'm SpongeBob SquareSword. Like, then they say that, and I just say that, and I've played with someone who had their character that was named, I don't want to say, because if you listen to him, I'm calling him out, but we played, and he had a really ridiculous character name, and it's like, well, my immersion here, my escapism is in these characters, in this name, we're forging a cool story. I'm not here for a circus act, right? So it's the same kind of thing with people who do that with minis. Like, if they're more interested in the mechanics, they're not interested in the lore and the minis and the story, well, what are we doing? And it kills immersion for me. I don't know if that's the same for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does. Absolutely.
So, any other thoughts on minis, immersion, escapism, anything else?
I mean, we still do them in our late 30s for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, we find enjoyment because there's a simplistic little nature to it that it might seem nerdy and stupid to some people, but I mean, rolling those dice tell a tale. It's fun because there's a bit of variety to it that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I just find fun in the simplicity of it.
Yeah. I enjoy the dice mechanics because it helps it helps write a story. It's real easy to be like, well, my character wins, and that's just what you write down. It's different if there's a chance that dictates what happens in that story. So as we play, we can look at the table and be like, okay, here's the odds, here's what I think is going to happen. Then you start rolling dice, and the dice dictate where that story goes. So if you're ever playing tabletop games, you start thinking about the dice as fate, and you have no control once they leave your hand. That fate's going to dictate, did your guy destroy this guy or did he not? And you can be the best. XCOM is the worst example, but you can have a 95% chance to nuke a guy with your sniper rifle and miss, and that guy has 1% chance to hit you and he kills you. That can happen, and sometimes fate just wills it. God wills it. God wills it. What was that from?
Kingdom of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven, yeah.
Yep.
We used to
Great movie.
We watched that, and then for a long time when we played tabletops, I'm pretty sure we were walking around.
God wills it.
Yeah, it was really funny.
We always do this, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Wiggling your
God
hand,
wills
yeah.
it.
Yeah, ridiculous. So, but yeah, for those of you guys who are listening, I'd be curious what wargaming is to you, what form of escapism you guys find, and if any at all. Does this change your perspective? Do you have stories you want to share? As always, getting in the comments down below. And if you guys happen to leave us some comments, give some shout outs to John, because he's come out and done some filming with me today, and let him know what you think. I think it'd be really good, and I can't do these videos without having a guest. Otherwise, it would just be me talking to a camera, which that's going to get boring really quickly. So to that end, unless you've got something else, I think that's going to probably wrap up today's episode.
I think so.
Cool. As always, folks, if you enjoy this, like and subscribe. You know how to support the channel if you want. Check the description down below. Make sure you keep painting your models, keep rolling your dice, forge some narratives, and we will catch you guys next time.
Later. Bye. Paint those dice and roll them models.
Thank you so much for watching and being here with me today. I pour a lot of time and passion into every video, and I genuinely hope it adds something to your hobby experience. If you've enjoyed today's content and want to see more, consider supporting me over on Patreon. Every little bit of support helps fuel what I'm doing here, and it truly makes a difference. Whether it's a few dollars or simply sharing the channel with others, your support means the world to me and allows me to keep doing what I love and hopefully inspiring you along the way. A huge thank you as well to all my sponsors, Monument Hobbies, Fortress Miniatures and Games, Baron of Dice, and Deathler Designs as well. Their backing is vital to the channel, and if you're in the market for top quality paints, miniatures, dice, or terrain, please check out their links below. Not only will you be picking up some great products, but you'll also be supporting this growing community we share together. Thank you so much for watching, and for your time, and for being a part of this journey with me. As I sign off today, let's go ahead and highlight some awesome patrons who are helping fuel this journey we're on together and helping keep things going.